keys, I imagine.
Yeah, it's a beast. I've learned to, I still hate it.
Yeah. I worked for a background screening company started for a while, about a year and a half. They were acquired by a big risk management company, but yeah, their sales team, you can invest the man-hours much of a chance you really have for, but then you get those big contracts.
I mean, essentially, that's how this guy got started. To Mexico.
Like 6 months. About you? 3 months?
I moved.
Were you met with Altounian previously? Oh, okay. Oh, so you were there when did they move you here? Or?
No,
Maybe they just decided to move.
Yes, because I'll be doing the MBA program in the fall. So I figured, well, might as well get out there. I mean, if I have the opportunity to, sure, and I can still do my work and get in on that situation. Sometimes I just came out here. Basically work with from everywhere around. Yeah, so I need to also include people get the most.
So are you looking at getting
Thinking about it, yeah. I think
there's a bunch of options, right? Co-working spaces, you get the one I go to, I know some folks over there from they were one of my vendors, the last job I was at, the one back in Florida, they were my insurance vendor. So obviously when I moved out here, I was like, let me see, check that out, because I knew they were starting to get a central office there, New York headquartered, decent presence in the Bay, and Austin was like their market they wanted to tap into. But then, you know, I come out here, and I didn't even realize that I co-worked this place. Yeah, offices on, 38th and because they're kind of a big name. His name encouraged that name. I don't know. Maybe oh, there you go. The phrase. Stand behind it. So yeah, I was just checking them out. They're still in fun. They're running lean. They cover basically Bay Area. They literally are every flag in between out of Austin. So, they're just running lean for now. So, where's the place to get started? Yeah, it's a good number for considering putting the name with. Yeah, I mean, they'll keep you until, honestly, I wouldn't say enterprise, but they definitely will get you multi-office. I would say, once you get to maybe 5,000 employees, you could be good with that. You say they're small, medium-sized business, their solution covers. I guess you get into like the need for like more complex reporting, something that you get from the enterprise. Good, really user friendly. Yeah.
Spread as much as we can.
Hi. This is so intimate. Hi everybody. This will be a great session. I'm glad you're all here. I'm sure it's December. This is a good crowd. Usually it's standing room only. So it's a little smaller. So that just means you guys get plenty of time for questions. But glad to have you all here. We've got, I see David just came in, and Amos and Cam in the back. I'm Josh Baer, and this is the Intro to the Austin Startup Scene. With the format of this is I'll give a presentation for, I try to make it 45 minutes. It usually ends up being like an hour. And then we have time for half an hour, 45 minutes Q&A with the panel, with all of us up here. And so it represents a whole bunch of different backgrounds and different industries and things like that too. So, if I can unlock my computer. This series is part of we do this every Tuesday, so there's like a different talk every Tuesday. This is Intro to the Austin Startup Scene. The first Tuesday is how to meet angel investors, so how to get funding for your startup. So we'll touch on that just a little bit today. But if that's particularly what you're really interested in is funding, there's like a whole nother talk just about that. We do one that I just did this morning that's for people interested in becoming a mentor or an investor here, so about how to get involved as a mentor or an investor. So if you know anybody that would want to come to one of those. We're going to be kicking off a new one next in January, where once a month we'll do a pitch session for anybody in Austin who's got accepted to pitch at any other pitch event anywhere else. And we'll help them work on their pitches to try to help them do the best when they got there. So if they're pitching at TechCrunch or at South by Southwest or at some other thing coming up, we can help them get ready for that. So, sorry, my computer's going really slow loading all this. So this one today again is for Intro to the Austin Startup Scene. This tends to be people that are new to Austin, obviously, maybe just moved here, or maybe they're just new to the scene. They've been working at a big company or somewhere else, and they want to get more plugged into startups. One of the things about being one of the fastest growing cities in the country is there's people moving here all the time. And then the thing about obviously tech and entrepreneurship is people plugging into that all the time. I'm trying my best to fill in talking with what I know is on the slides, but this is all going really slow. So in this presentation, there are a few, like 3 short videos. Each one's only about 2 minutes long. And the first one is just a really quick intro to Capital Factory. Maybe. There we go. All right, how many of you guys went on the tour?
When else?
Only 2?
Oh, went on the tour?
Went on the tour? 3? Okay. How many of you have never been to Capital Factory before today? A bunch of you. All right, that's good. Oh, we're up there, good. How many of you have lived in Silicon Valley before?
Is it Silicon Valley or Valley?
Silicon Valley.
Valley?
Silicon Valley. California.
Yes.
All right. How many of you went to UT? How many of you are working at a startup right now? How many of you want to work at a startup?
Interested.
All right, about half and half. All right, my thing's just sitting here spinning. This is one of the old MacBooks. The old MacBooks don't buy. They're really, really slow. I'm waiting for the new MacBook Pro, which I think is better, but this one's, as you can see, really, really slow. So I guess I'm just going to talk through it. The type of stuff we'll cover here is obviously how to get plugged into the scene. For a lot of people, that's different things. Sometimes it's how to meet a co-founder. It might be how to get a job. It might be where should I go work. It might be how to meet investors. We'll cover a bunch of those different pieces, and then there'll be time for you to ask questions too. Let's see, I also can try it on my phone. But to start off with, we'll talk about what's different about Austin and what makes Austin unique. And so it's kind of interesting. When people talk about Austin, like the things they say that make it unique are actually kind of the same things that make every other place that's not Austin, or not Silicon Valley unique. But everybody thinks it's what makes them special. And so for Austin, what people would normally talk about is they say, well, this is a bootstrap first kind of place. You're expected to go kind of get something done on your own before you go raise a lot of money. But actually most places that aren't Silicon Valley are bootstrap first kind of places too. Going hand in hand with that, it's generally, things are really revenue focused, and that's kind of part of being kind of bootstrap focused. And so it's very hard to do a startup here if you don't have a really clear idea how it's going to go make money or raise money. That some people that you may say that, and that may sound like a really stupid thing to say because you're like, well, of course, how can you have a startup that doesn't know how to make money? But actually, there's a lot of startups that have no idea how they're going to make money, so that's something to really have in mind. It's a kind of a social capital goes a long way in Austin. So if you're looking to plug into things and meet people, being able to go kind of help out other people, volunteer with things, be part of something, contribute to something, that goes a long way, and that's, I think, a great way to go plug in. And I think you'll find that really comes back to you. And then Austin really has this rising tide mentality. It's been the fastest growing city for a long time. There's all this kind of energy and things going on, and that attracts. It has this feeling that, like, for me to do well, it's not like it's at someone else's expense. And so if someone else raises money, it's going to be easier for my company to raise money. If somebody else's company is successful, it's going to be easier for my company to be successful. And it's just not like that in a lot of other places. And that's something that we've really benefited from for a long time. So I really appreciate it. Oh, I know. It's all. Oh, it's unfrozen, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Look at that. Maybe we'll get it up here. So those were the questions I was asking you. I wasn't just making those up. So those are the questions. And you can find this online if you guys want to go look it up. And then I started going through what's different about Austin. I said it was a bootstrap first kind of place, revenue focused. Quality of life was one I missed. That's why a lot of people move here. It's because they're starting to have a family. They realize they're never going to own a home in California. That they have other things that are important. They want to work hard, but there's a lot of other stuff that's important to them too. Social capital and the rising tide. And then the other thing is just, Austin being the fastest growing city. It's been the fastest growing city in the country for quite a while. I don't know how. It obviously can't remain the fastest growing city in the country forever, but somehow for the past 5 or 6 years we have been. What that means is, and why do people do that? It's just everywhere they look, everyone says Austin's one of the best places to live and to work, and it's on every top 10 list. In fact, all of Texas is on every top 10 list. And so the reason companies want to be here and startups want to be here is because this is where people want to live, and they need to hire people. People is one of the hardest parts of having a startup and the hardest things to attract. And so the fact that we're just a great place to live and people want to be here is a big part of what actually makes it such an entrepreneurial city. And there's some other things we'll get to too as well, like the university and other things as well. So how did Austin become a tech hub? This is your quick history lesson. This is my version of the Austin history. I've checked it by a bunch of other people. I'm pretty sure it's like nobody really argues with me about it, but like I'm not a historian or anything. This is just me talking to lots of people. But everybody I talk to goes back to this one guy. If you just talk to as many people as you can and go as far back in Austin as you can go. This guy George Kosmetsky, who founded a company called Teledyne, which is a big national company. It was a very successful computer company. He then got really involved here in Austin, both in the Chamber of Commerce at the University of Texas. He was a big philanthropist. He helped create the IC Squared Institute, which then created the Austin Technology Incubator, which is one of the first incubators in the country. And him working with Bobby Inman, who was at one point was the deputy director of the CIA and had done a bunch of other things, and with Pike Powers, who's another person who's really involved in the local economic development here in Austin. They all get together and helped to bring MCC here to Austin back in the 80s. And MCC, that building is still there. It's now called the West Pickle Research Center up near the Domain. But that was, the MCC stood for the Microelectronics and Computer Consortium, and it was this big consortium put together to attract developers and talent and investment here to Austin to go compete with the Japanese who were developing they thought were doing better than us at chips and things like that. What that did is it brought all this investment to Austin, it brought a lot of people here, and it really put Austin on the map. And then the next thing was this one.
This is the story of the little room over the pizza place at 315 Chestnut Street, the modest first floor bedroom in Tallinn, Estonia, and the dusty basement at 1406 35th Street. It is the story of the old dining room table at 25th and Hoffman Avenue, the southbound bus barreling down I-95, and the second floor above the strip mall at Roble and El Camino.
This magic moment,
It is the story of where every great idea begins,
so different and so new.
where those with endless vision and an equal amount of audaciousness believed they had the power to do more, time and time again.
And made it happen.
At Dell, we're honored to be part of some of the world's great stories. Stories that began much the same way ours did, in a little dorm room, number 2713.
This magic moment.
So around that time, Michael Dell started Dell in his dorm room at UT. That white building wasn't there. You could see the tower where he started it back there. And that really was a huge thing for Austin. Obviously, it created this massive company. It put Austin on the map, and it helped a lot of people to grow. Hey, Paula, can you see if what they're doing over there? I don't know if it's construction or is it like, it feels like somebody's like on the back of the wall banging on it. It'd be great if they could stop. Thanks. So it really put Austin on the map, and it was a huge thing. And it was great for Michael Dell, who became one of the richest people in the world. You'll see Dell's stamp all over Austin with the medical school and the children's center and the JCC and all these other things. But it really did a lot of other things for everybody else here in Austin. And a big part of that was that in part of Dell growing that fast and becoming this huge company, all these other people grew with it and learned a lot and developed all these skills and connections and met people and became what they called them at the time, Dellionaires, which were the people that became millionaires working at Dell. And all those people went off to go do other things and start more companies. And that's this virtuous cycle that really creates a startup ecosystem. And Dell was, I think, a big part of the beginning of that here in Austin. And what happens is when a big company grows and is successful and becomes a multi-billion-dollar company, then they attract lots of talent and hire lots of people. Those people work on teams. They work with other people. They learn skills and things, and they're part of this fast-growing company, so they learn a lot about being part of a fast-growing company. They meet other people on their teams who they learn, like, oh, I like working with that person and that person and that person, and those people are really smart, and we work well together. They learn about problems that big companies have, so they see problems inside the company that are opportunities to go create another company for, and they see problems their customers are having, problems outside the company, and that's opportunities for them too.
PayPal was sort of like a similar thing, right? Not like a bunch of people like spread out from PayPal and did all sorts of things.
Yeah, the PayPal Mafia is an example of just tons of other companies, LinkedIn, YouTube, those were time, they all came out of PayPal, Tesla, obviously. And so that's a second. But then once they do that, then those people go on and they then become VCs, they become entrepreneurs, they become angel investors. They can take 6 months off and go start their next thing, or they can invest in the next thing that's going on. And then that cycle kind of keeps going. The problem is that cycle takes like 10 years to go like one time around the cycle. So it's decades, right? So we're like, Dell was in the 80s, we're like 4 turns around the cycle, right? Silicon Valley's like 6 turns around the cycle. Like maybe they're moving a little faster or something, but part of it is they're further than us around that cycle. And a lot of other cities are still waiting for it to start. They're hoping for that first thing that can kick it off.
Why are they further?
What?
Why is it?
Because they started sooner. I mean, that's a very oversimplification, but I mean, like Silicon Valley is a special place, and they have a lot of great things happening there. And I don't think any other city, just like no place will be Hollywood, and no place will be New York City. I don't think any other place will ever be Silicon Valley. But in this simplistic view that I'm giving, they started earlier. They started before we did, making more companies.
There was like a bunch of government money that went in like the 20s or 30s that started 100 years almost before us.
Yeah. But it does happen here in Austin. This is a company called Tivoli that was founded by a lot of different people. One of them, a guy named that's here at Mentor Capital Factory named Bob Fabio. And this slide is actually like a decade old. I bet it's at least 10 years old. And this was showing back then all the companies that came out of Tivoli. And if you were to go make it again today, it would take over. I'm sure it would take over the whole thing because there's a lot more companies that have come out of those companies. Pluck went on and made a whole bunch more companies, and Broadjump made more companies, and Motive made more companies, and Zillion. It's like Vignette made a ton of companies, all those kinds of things. So this is an example of how it can happen. I came here to Austin to work at a company called Trilogy Software. Trilogy has also just created a ton of other startups and investors and entrepreneurs and other things that have come out of Trilogy. And pretty much every time there's a big company that grows here in Austin and becomes successful, that happens again. And so here are some of the other more recent kind of billion-dollar companies where each of them you can point to at least a dozen other startups that have come out of them. And so Amos, who runs Techstars, and and me and other people. This is a big part where we're scouting out, watching them, right? Like, who are the next team coming out of RetailMeNot or Indeed, right? Because that's going to be some badass team of people that they hired and trained and recruited and taught all this stuff, and then they're going to start their next thing, right? Here's some of the up-and-coming companies. I'm not going to read them all, but these are just maybe some of the next IPOs you might see. And then here are the really big companies in town. And there are a lot of really big companies in town. Pretty much all of them, like everybody who's a big company, has a big presence here in town. Many people don't realize it. We are Apple's headquarters. There are more people working for Apple in Austin than anywhere else in the world. Cupertino is their second largest headquarters now. Amazon, Atlassian, IBM, Microsoft, Samsung, Facebook, Dell, obviously, Google, huge presence here. So all these companies have a really big presence here. What's unique about Austin? Here are a couple quick special things. South by, the biggest of them. Startup Week and Startup Crawl. That's our celebration of Austin itself. Outside of South by, Google really just having an incredible presence here and being a big contributor to the community. The University of Texas. What we're doing here at Capital Factory. I saw. How many of you have been to South by? So a handful of you, it's not that many. South by is it's this awesome, incredible 2-week now long festival that's a conference around music and film and technology. It's really about almost everything different going on. It's almost like 20 different conferences happening all at once. And it's a time when everybody comes to Austin. There's a lot of people you might want to do business with or meet, and if they don't come to Austin very often, you'd be like, hey, why don't you come visit me? They're like, oh, I come to Austin during South by. Like, that's my one time a year that I go. But that's a great opportunity for us, and a great thing that you can take advantage of is that's the time when everybody's coming to Austin. So it's a great time to do business, to meet people, to connect, and to really use it to your advantage. You can do South by 2 different ways. You can buy a badge, which costs about $800. And it's a great thing to do. It gets you access to all the panels and sessions and all the official events. Makes you look really cool because you walk around with the badge, and totally worth doing, but expensive. And if you can't do that, you can completely do South by Southwest without a badge. You don't need a badge at all. There's so much happening. There's so much stuff going on, and more of it is free and open to the public than is what you need to have a badge to go to. And actually, most of the things that actually matter for doing business are private things that are not. You don't need a badge for it. So it's much more about just doing your homework on your industry and who you care about, and knowing who's coming to South by, which companies are going to be here, which people are speaking here, and just reaching out to them and trying to set up your own meetings than having a badge or anything like that. Austin Startup Week is in the fall, in October, sandwiched between the 2 weekends of the Austin City Limits Music Festival. And it's a celebration of all the great things that happen every week here in Austin in the startup community. And we're right now planning the next one, which is coming up. We just wrapped up the last one in October. Sorry, we're already planning one for next year, but we're focused on South by. But we're just working on the dates for next year's. It's a really great event, and another great way to kind of plug in and find out what's going on. During South by Southwest and during the Startup Crawl, we help put on one of the biggest parties at South by called the Startup Crawl. Sorry, during South by Southwest and during Startup Week. The Startup Crawl is basically a massive party where all the startups throw a party in their office at the same time. And so we have a big party here, and if you're too small to have your own office, you can have like a table or a booth, and then there's other locations, and then other places throw parties. There's a shuttle bus driving around, bringing people between all of them. It's a lot of fun, but it's also really a big recruiting event. It's a great way to go get inside other people's offices and see what it's like and meet people that work there. And that's a big reason why a lot of the companies that are doing it is to meet people that they want to go hire. And here's a video about the Startup Crawl. I mentioned Google. So Google has a huge presence here in addition to having a big office here. They're just really involved in the community. Austin is a Google tech hub, and Capital Factory is, and so that means we're the kind of the window into the rest of Google. If you're a member here, you can access any of the other Google tech hubs all over the world. Both if you're visiting there, you can get a place to work, but also you can get kind of tap into them to meet people there and for travel. If we need to work with anybody at Google, obviously it's a channel into those, and then they just really help support all the other things that go on here. In addition to that, Google has some other great things going on in Austin. Google Fiber was announced many years ago, and honestly, it's been in the news lately as having a somewhat questionable future, but we really benefited from it greatly. Even if you don't have Google Fiber, your internet's probably a lot faster today because Google Fiber came to Austin. As soon as they announced it, that caused AT&T to then roll out their gigabit service. It caused one of the local providers, Grande, to roll out their gigabit service. I have Time Warner at my house. We don't have gigabit service, but magically overnight, about 2 years ago, my internet just got 3 times faster. I didn't have to pay anything extra, and that was directly a result of Google Fiber being announced. Wasn't even being sold. It was just like that they knew it was coming. So that shows the power of competition and what they can really do to move the market. And honestly, I think that's a big reason why Google is doing this. It's not necessarily that they think this is the biggest business for them. It's that they're able to then affect others in the market and get them to provide cheap, fast internet to everybody. I was super excited to have that come here to Austin, and I think we've all really benefited from it. And there are lots of people that have it, and I think really like it. But even if you don't have it, you're probably benefiting from it too. And then they just announced today that the first person went on their fully autonomous ride in a Google autonomous car here in Austin, up in Mueller. And a person who was not able to drive and hasn't driven a car for like 12 years got to go out and go to the doctor and go to the grocery store and do a bunch of other stuff. They're testing those cars on the road here in Austin, which is pretty awesome.
They've been testing them for like the last 6 months though in Mueller, haven't they?
Yeah, but
This was like the first.
this was a person who went off by himself without anybody else in the car. Nobody, nothing else like that. I believe it was in the press today. So they've been testing it for a while. We were the second location, just like we were the second place for Google Fiber. We were also the second place where they've been testing autonomous cars, they continue to make big investments in Austin, which is pretty awesome. And then the University of Texas is here. We're really lucky to have that. It's one of the largest universities in the country. Awesome resource for startups, for talent, for really bringing great people and smart people to Austin to Austin. And I teach a class there for student entrepreneurs called Longhorn Startup, which we're just picking the teams for the spring semester right now. And so here's a little bit about that. Longhorn Startup is designed to give student entrepreneurs the opportunity to work on their startup while they're in school and get real course credit for graduation.
I'm a biology major.
I'm an MBA student and also earning my master's in advertising.
I'm studying electrical engineering.
I'm a junior film major and computer science minor.
We brought in some incredible speakers to meet with our students, like Michael Dell and Brett Hurt and Mark Cuban.
We have a lot of great presenters come.
The speakers are really fantastic.
When you've got a startup that's real, it's time to get involved in the lab. And the lab takes the seminar to a whole new level by giving you a bunch more credit, connecting you with local mentors, and giving you lots of time to work on your startup with your peers.
I wanted to get some real world business experience before I graduated. When I signed up for the class, I had to start defending my idea and my business model right then.
In addition to getting time to work on their startup, they get matched up with local entrepreneur mentors that work with them to improve their pitch, to focus them in the right direction, and to help them get it pointed towards funding and acceleration.
A lot of the acceleration that we've had so far wouldn't have been possible without this class.
We've had some of the greatest mentors.
I mean, the access to folks like Josh and Bob and Ben Dyer and just the entire mentor network.
They're always so knowledgeable and so helpful and always willing to give us so much support that I think not only has been invaluable, it's just been fun.
This class has linked me with a mentor that has just become an angel to us.
And it's always been a fun experience just because they're also fun people.
And you get to talk to those people and ask them questions and kind of get a glimpse into how successful people made it to where they are.
Get this kind of insider knowledge, learning what it means to make a company, to make a startup work.
There are a lot of great resources on campus for student entrepreneurs, but it's also great for them to be able to get off campus and go to Capital Factory, where they're surrounded by other real entrepreneurs that are working on their startups and learning from each other.
So pleased to have Capital Factory.
It's such a great place. That's where we meet up with some of our mentors.
It's a beautiful place to work, and it's a hub of entrepreneurship in Austin.
I started my first company when I was in college, but we didn't have any of these kinds of support structures. We had an entrepreneurial center, we had business courses, but nothing like this that could get me time and credit to actually work on my startup in school and learn from all the great resources that the university has to offer.
I've wanted to be in this class since it started.
This is what I came here to do, build a startup and take it to the next level.
This class has been amazing.
I love it.
Cool. So that's Longhorn Startup.
What's the course number?
What's the course? And we're cross-listed across computer science, engineering, fine arts, and management, so it depends what school you're in. You want to take like the right one for you. But if you go to Longhorn.startup.com, it has all the courses listed there in the syllabuses too. Are you at UT now?
Yes.
Cool. So the lab, we teach the seminar in the fall and the lab in the spring. The seminar anybody can take, and we just wrapped up, and you should definitely be part of it no matter what. The lab, you have to have a startup. Like you have to like be on it. It's only you. All the teams actually are working on a startup. But you also could, if you really want to be in the class, you could figure out who's in the class and then join one of those teams. Like
I'll do that.
That's the way to do that too. Cool. So the big ending of it is we do our demo day at the end of the semester. That's May 4th, 2017. And we always bring in a great speaker for that. That happened to be Bob Metcalf interviewing Mark Cuban. We've had Michael Dell and a bunch of other great people.
Really far in the future.
We'll try to really far in the future. we'll try to keep it up as well this time. Bob Metcalf is if there's one person you want to know at UT, it's Bob Metcalf. Bob was an inventor of Ethernet, founder of 3Com. He's now a professor of innovation at UT, and he's really amazing. He's a great mentor, a great supporter of startups. You will see him around Austin. He's a very frequent speaker at a lot of different events, and he is just kind of a great person to go up and chat with and talk to about your startup. And I think some people can feel really intimidated about talking to him, but he's super accessible. Would love to talk to anybody. If you see him anywhere, I would totally encourage you to go chat with him and tell him what you're working on. One of the other really big things going on at UT is the Dell Medical School. That was a public-private partnership that the city helped to fund to create the Dell Medical School at UT, and it obviously will be involved, create a lot more energy and excitement around health tech innovation. The guy in the lab coat there is Dean Clay Johnson, who's the new dean of the school and was just named one of the Austinites of the year, and he's pretty amazing. And they're in the process now of setting up this whole new medical school, and I think we'll see a lot more interesting things coming out of that. If you want to plug into the medical school, the person to know is Melly Price. She runs. She's one of the fund directors here at Capital Factory, but she also runs the technology innovation practice there at UT at the medical school, so she's easy to find here, and she's a great person to plug you into that. And then another great thing to know at UT Austin is the Texas Venture Labs group, and that's an accelerator program that's different than a lot of others because instead of accepting startups that the students might be working on, they take teams of MBAs and put them on startups here in Austin to go help them, and so they always every year have a cohort of startups here in Austin that they're working with and pairing up with teams at UT. You heard a little about Capital Factory on the tour. You missed kind of the video since I didn't get to play that at the beginning, but I'll keep it quick. Capital Factory is the center of gravity for entrepreneurs here in Austin. We are fully buzzword compliant. We're an incubator, accelerator, co-working space, fund. We do all kinds of different things, and we play nice with everybody. We work with all the other co-working spaces, incubators, accelerators, funds, and anything like that in Austin. That's the nice thing about working with early stage startups is unlike VCs who get greedy and want to take the whole deal for themselves and fight over startups, we don't fight over startups. If we invest in a startup, we need other people to invest in them too. And so we love working with everybody. In particular, we have the biggest space, and it's right in the middle of downtown, and we think it's really nice. And so we love hosting lots of other people here. So we host a lot of events here. Last year we had about 1,000 events, so 3 or 4 every day. I bet we'll have more next year. And brought in about 50,000 people. That will be more next year. And so that's all just energy and people and programmers and entrepreneurs and investors and government people and all kinds of other people swirling around. And Capital is just all about people. It's all about connecting people together. So everyone that's here, They work here, they have a desk, they have a membership, they have an office. They can work anywhere, probably somewhere else cheaper, or easier in some way. But the reason they're here is because of the people that are here, because they think that they're going to meet someone here who's going to change their life. They're going to meet their co-founder, they're going to meet their first investor, they're going to meet their first customer, they're going to meet their first employee, and that's why people are here. And everybody here is working on tech and startups and things like that. And the business model is really two parts. We have to pay the rent. And it's expensive, and we pay the rent from everybody here paying rent. So that's all it is. There's nobody making a lot of money off everybody here paying rent or anything like that. We're just trying to keep this place running and make it awesome. We have extra money, we buy more Star Wars posters. But that's the space. And then we have a fund to invest in the companies as well. The investors in the fund are all the mentors here. So it's all the CEOs and founders here in town. And the model is we do all these events, that brings in all the startups. We live with them. That's part of how we know who's good. And then we use the mentors all meet with them, and they kind of meet with them and figure out who's good, and we watch them. So we figure out who the best ones are. Then we invest in those, and then we introduce them to all the best talent that comes in, all the best investors, all the best customers, all the best everything that's swirling around us, which is kind of a virtuous thing, because those are the ones we know the best. And so the ones that we invest in get the best access to all those different things, and then we just keep doing that. That's the basic model of Capital Factory. So that's basically what we do here. So a couple more quick questions, and then I'm going to invite our panel up for the Q&A. How do you know what's going on? That's usually a good question for people that are new to Austin or trying to plug in. The simplest answer is to sign up for the Startup Digest. It's an email that you'll get every Monday morning from me with a calendar of everything that's coming up for the next couple weeks in Austin. So you just sign up by email. You can go to startupdigest.com. There's ones for I don't write them for all the cities. I just do Austin, but there's ones for all these other cities too. And you can subscribe by email. If you know an event that you think we should be telling people about, you can submit it, and we'll try to include it. Online, the startup community is on this Facebook group. This is an old screenshot. I think there's 15,000 people on the group now. It's if you want to ask the startup community something, you go post it here, and people will answer. You'll get feedback. Yeah, I'm looking for a lawyer. I'm looking for something else. Anyone tried this technology? Is anybody looking for this? I need some office space. Those are all kind of good things to go post on there. We just launched in the App Store. We just launched on Product Hunt. Go vote for us. Follow me on Twitter. That's another good way. I tweet too much, so you will find out everything from that. If you want to find out what Austin entrepreneurs are talking about, go to austinstartups.com, and it's a Medium publication. And basically we aggregate all the Austin entrepreneurs who are writing on Medium, and so you can see kind of what people are talking about and writing about, things like that. A lot of great things on there. And here's the kind of shortcut. I have a blog post. The link is bit.ly/plug into ATX startup scene. It has these 10 steps on it, and it goes into detail on each one, and it tells you what to sign up for, which Twitter accounts to follow, which Facebook groups to go to, which news sites to watch, which coffee shops to hang out at, which happy hours to go to, all the different things you might want to do to kind of plug in and be part of it. How do you get a job at a startup? I know some of you raised your hand. You're looking for that. When you're looking for a job, and with anything and most things, personal introductions are always best. So you really want to try to leverage your personal network as much as you can, and that's usually much bigger than you think it is. So how do you really tap into that first? The pay it forward social capital thing, go volunteer at stuff, be part of things, plug in, be visible. Post your resume on the different Facebook groups and events, attend things we had a job fair here a week ago. We do that regularly. The Startup Crawl is basically a job fair. Hanging out at co-working spaces and going to events and meetups like this, those are all good ways to meet a lot of people. This is a Facebook group called Capital Factory Jobs. It's got about 5,000 people on it. It's very effective. You can go post your resume there, and a bunch of startups watch it. And I'm telling you, I see people all the time get jobs on there, and then startups also post, I'm looking for something, and I see them all the time hiring people through there. There's another group that's larger, not just focused on startups, called Austin Digital Jobs. That's another good one where you might want to post your resume. And if you want to go volunteer for stuff, there's a group called Austin Tech Volunteers. And so you join that group, and when there's events going on or things you can be part of, people post that they're looking for volunteers, and that's a good opportunity to go help out. How to find a co-founder. Finding a co-founder is super hard. There's a saying that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best day is today. I like to say that about startups, but it's also kind of like a co-founder. It's like the best co-founder is someone you've known for the past 20 years. Well, most people don't have somebody like that. So what do you do after that? Well, you got to go meet somebody today. So co-founder meetup. Second Monday here at Capital Factory, people get up and pitch their ideas to people, to a big audience. Actually, I think founder dating isn't really real anymore. I'm going to take that off. I think going to it was a site that got acquired. Hackathons are great places to meet co-founders because they're very self-selecting. The type of people at hackathons are the kind of people that you are looking to join a company, and you kind of get to try them out like for real and see what they're really like and have a real problem to work on and see what it's like after they stay up all night and they see if they smell bad and like all kinds of other things like that. So I really am a big fan of doing that. Cam is here with us today from 3 Day Startup, and so he'll be able to talk a little bit about that in particular. Any type of place where people are going to getting together and building stuff. Cafe Bedouins is a meetup that happens every Tuesday at a different coffee shop where people are just working on side projects together. Great place to meet people. Meetups like this, great place to meet people. And then hanging out here at Capital Factory. In particular, we have an entrepreneur in residence program which is focused on taking serial entrepreneurs and helping them to find co-founders and build their next company by meeting all the entrepreneurs here. And then all kinds of events, like I said, those are great places to meet co-founders, all kinds of events like that. How do you meet investors? We have a whole meetup about this, so if you really are looking for that, you should come to that meetup, which the next one will be the first week of January. Like before, personal introductions are always best. Co-working spaces, places like this, incubators and accelerators. A lot of reasons why people join Techstars or something like that is because they want to meet investors. That's usually one big driver, not the only one. And go where they are, right? And so going to meetups and events where they're going to be, going to office hours, going to pitch events, things like that. Here are the different accelerators here in Austin. That give funding. That give out funding. It's a very approximate estimate of like the funding and the equity. Everybody kind of has different terms and different ways they do it. That's about what you give up for what you get. You'll see Techstars and Capital Factory both focus on tech companies. The Athena Health has an interesting program focused on companies that sell into doctors' offices. Unlimited USA is focused on social good companies. So there's a few different options. We have the Central Texas Angel Network here in Austin, which is one of the largest and most active angel groups in the country, and that's a great resource if you're looking to raise funding. And then we've got a pretty broad range of early stage venture capitalists. We certainly could use more funding. We could use more funding of different kinds. Most of these are people writing $1 to $3 million checks or $1 to $2 million checks into tech companies. Some that stick out that are different. Clayton Christopher, the founder of Sweet Leaf Tea, and he has a fund focused on consumer packaged goods and those types of things that like drinks and other things like that. He understands really well. Sante Ventures does biotech and medical devices and things like that. Sarah Brand with True Wealth just raised a new fund focused on particularly investing in female founders and things that sell into the home and other female founders. So there's some of the different options here in Austin. Where should I work? Obviously, I would start in a co-working space. I'm probably biased. There's a Facebook group where you can post for office space. I'd put off signing a long lease for as long as you can, but eventually, as you become a real company, that's what they want you to do is sign a 3-year lease. So to avoid that as long as you can. The place to be, I think, in Austin is downtown. I mean, Austin's great. There's lots of places to be, but if you look at where most of the startups are and most of the tech companies and things, most of them are downtown for as long as they can be. And then there's lots of different co-working spaces, both here in downtown and all over Austin. So I'll leave with one set of kind of last thought, and then we'll invite the panel up. Cities. Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, writes a lot of great essays. And one of the ones that I really enjoyed was about cities' unique ambitions and what makes each city unique. And he said every really great city kind of has something you can identify with, something you know about them that makes them a unique city. And so we'll see if you guys can guess these. I think most of them are pretty obvious. What's the ambition in LA? If you're in LA, what do you want to be? Do you want to be
famous?
Be famous, right? You're in Hollywood. Don't yell it if you've seen this before. But what if you're in New York City? What do you want to be?
Rich.
Have you seen this before?
No.
All right, Ken. All right, Rich, you're right. Be rich, right? It's really expensive to be in New York. What about doing in Washington? Oh, I guess I hit it twice.
Being inside.
Being inside. Good guess. Politics, right? If you're in Boston, what's a little harder? What's
Cold.
Boston? Cold? You want to be cold?
You want to be warm.
You want to be warm, right? Yeah. What's Boston known for?
He's smart.
Boston's got a lot of universities. You got it. That's right. That's what it is. So Silicon Valley is like
Connected.
be disruptive, be powerful, be like make the biggest things in the world, right? And so any thoughts on what Austin's ambition is? What do you think it is? There's no right answer, so like whatever you think is fine. But what?
Be different.
Be different. Be weird. Austin. Keep Austin weird. And those are all. I think those are all kind of the right things. So a good friend of mine, Bijoy Goswami, who's a longtime community organizer and an entrepreneur here in Austin. I saw him give this presentation for one time first, and he said Austin's ambition is to be yourself. That Austin people come here and it's like do it your own way, do your own thing, keep Austin weird, buy local, all those types of things, and that goes along really well with being an entrepreneur. I think it's no surprise that Austin is such an entrepreneurial city, and so many people here are so entrepreneurial. So that's certainly one thing that I love about it too. So, come on. I'm going to invite up the panel now. So Amos, and David, and Cam, and we will open it up to all of you guys. It's a really awesome panel, so you should feel really fortunate that all of them took their time to come out here. Thank you guys. I know, unfortunately, I know them all really well. But Cam, I first met when he was working on a startup at UT, which, if I recall, was so that you make it so that when you were watching a sports game and someone else was watching the sync. No, wait, it was syncing up the.
Yeah,
sports commentary. Some syncing.
Sports
something.
commentary.
Oh no, it was everybody else's commentary on your sports game. That was it. Yeah, that was awesome.
You just turn the volume down, and like streaming audio, and YouTube has limited channels, right? And there's limited TV channels. Well, we want the same thing for commentary. So if you want to hear like stats nerds call a baseball game, you can get that. Or if you want to hear people give fashion commentary on what players are wearing, you can do that.
Yeah.
Just.
All right, I wasn't asking you to give the whole pitch, but anyway.
It doesn't exist,
but it was,
so I want someone to do it.
But it was awesome. So anyway, I met Cam. I really liked that then, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to keep working on that one. But
first failure. But
then he started 3-Day Startup, and 3-Day Startup is a really amazing experience, educational experience, primarily for college students to help them learn about entrepreneurship. The name's kind of obvious, but it's certainly more than just that. And so I've been a big fan for a long time. And like I said, I think in particular what I like about it is I think it's one of the best places and ways to meet a co-founder. So he travels all over the world. He's been to startup communities all over the world. And fortunately we have him here in Austin, and they run 3-Day Startup from here at Capital Factory. So really glad to have Cam here. David was an entrepreneur himself, founded a very successful company here in Austin called Motion Computing, which made rugged commercial tablets way before Apple was making tablets, or like tablets were nearly as cool. He has done other startups as well, and now has a PhD in
entrepreneurship.
I was going to say, I was the editor of digital marketing. I know you taught digital marketing too, but a PhD in entrepreneurship and teaches at St. Edward's University. And in addition to being a mentor here at Capital Factory and an investor and doing lots of other things, he's really interesting to have on this panel because he recently did, as part of his research, did a big study on the investor community here in Austin and where that is and where it's going and what's needed. And so certainly would be one of the most knowledgeable experts on that, I think, that you could find. And then Amos, also really glad to have here. Amos was also an entrepreneur himself, and I first met him when we invested in his last company, and then which he moved here for, I think, right?
I was here.
Oh, you were here. Sorry for a while. And then he recently took over last year running the Techstars program here in Austin. And so brings obviously a different perspective, having both the local Techstars perspective, but he's also part of the whole global Techstars network, which is in many, many cities all over the world. So I think brings a really great perspective there. I'm a big fan of Techstars. I was an investor in the Techstars fund the first Techstars fund that launched here, and I'm always a mentor over what they're doing. Amos is mentoring and coming and doing office hours over here. When the Techstars launched here in Austin, they actually launched from here at Capital Factory, and I just was calling Amos a few weeks ago, reminding him that his lease was coming up at his current location and he should move back into Capital Factory. So we liked him a lot, and I'm really glad you guys all came. So thanks for coming. So thanks for. What kind of questions do you guys have about anything?
Let's start with you, Amos. I'm not familiar with what Techstars is. Could you just
Great start.
Yeah, I'll give you the under 2-minute version. So there's what
when people say Techstars, what they immediately think of is the accelerator. So we're one of the first accelerators probably in the world. It started 10 years ago in Boulder, Colorado. We now have 26 accelerators globally, from Cape Town, South Africa, Tel Aviv, Berlin, London. We also have a couple of other parts of our business now. So if you've ever heard of Startup Week, with the exception of, I think, this Startup Week.
There's about 4.
Yeah, there's a few Startup Weeks that don't fall on us, but most of the Startup Weeks around the world and Startup Weekends around the world are actually part of the Techstars family of companies, and then we also have a venture fund. So we're in 600 cities around the world, and our vision is to be, or our mission is to be able to help entrepreneurs wherever they are in their journey, and wherever they are has a couple of different dimensions. So wherever they are geographically, wherever they are first-time entrepreneur, 10th-time entrepreneur, or wherever they are in the lifespan of their company, so idea to IPO.
So y'all don't have like a particular focus, like college students or new entrepreneurs or much older
Entrepreneurs, yeah. I don't care if you're 14 or 400. Yeah. If you got a good idea.
Yeah.
But to make sure, but they do have a very specific program that like I said, most people think of them. They have a 3-month program that gives you funding and and mentorship and a whole bunch of other stuff. And one of them runs here in Austin. Not to finish
no,
but I want to make sure
yeah.
that's a really important part you want to take away is
So
they have a very active program here in Austin you can go apply for and be part of.
Yeah, so the accelerators all run once a year. So our next ones will start in January. It's 3 months long. It's 10 companies a year. So we take about 1% of applicants that we actually take into the program.
Cool. That's right behind you.
Cam, I'm wondering if you can elaborate a little more on your company.
Yeah.
3-day startup.
So entrepreneurship education is in the dark ages. Like as a discipline, it's shit.
Wait.
Not every.
He says to the entrepreneurship PhD professor.
Not every ecosystem has the luxury of having someone like Mr. Altounian or Josh leading Longhorn startup. So
Entrepreneurship education outside of Austin.
Yeah. Austin's special, but the rest of the world, it sucks. And this is a really powerful force, right? It's really powerful for communities, and if you want to be a successful economy, you need to be entrepreneurial. Doesn't mean only founders, but people in companies need to be entrepreneurial too. So something this important being taught terribly really sucks. So we started this thing at 3-day start at Austin and UT, just realizing that you don't need a college career to learn this stuff. There's opportunities for innovation here. So we try to cram all this learning into 3 days. If you have some experience, that's great. If you have none, that's fine too. We're just gonna own you for 3 days. It's gonna be really intense. But you're gonna do all the things that happen at an early stage company. So you're gonna come up with ideas, you're gonna pitch them, get feedback, talk to customers. Again, on day 2, we kick everybody out. So you're walking down the streets getting told by random people how much your idea sucks. and that is awkward and uncomfortable at first, and it becomes incredibly powerful, right? You learn how to get out of your own head because it's really not about your idea, it's about solving some problem. So we started it here. It caught on, but also we could not have done it without ATI and without Josh. Josh actually gave some really instrumental advice for us. We used to do 20-minute long pitches, and he just gave me this look, like, this was in our second or third program. He was like, dude, this needs to be a lot shorter. And he gave it the look in such a way that I knew he wasn't kidding around. And then the second piece of advice he gave us was we weren't as focused on students and universities as we were, and that narrowing was advice from him that really was the beginning of our peak. And so we started it here, but we tested in other communities and worked there too. And now we're in about 30 countries. We've done about 300 of these things, and it's really cool. We're trying to really just write the book on experiential entrepreneurship education. It's been cool.
And it's called the 3-day
3-day startup.
Yeah, and also tell you, I actually think it undersells what it really is, because people think startup, they think new venture creation. And I think what's so great, because I recommend it, frequently to people, and I've judged it, is it teaches critical thinking, creative thinking, and innovation. How do you actually identify a gap in the marketplace, figure out whether the gap has a market and a customer that's ready, and again, to what he said, it can be used in businesses all over. I think where Techstars really helps is actually taking those ideas and getting them to, where you can raise money and have a plan and hire people and do all that kind of stuff. This is, even before you get there, how do you figure out what's needed, that this idea makes sense? And you really see a difference with these students, that they're the people that go through. The judging is a blast.
Is it strictly tech, or is it just a general?
In our beginning, we were nothing but
SaaS and app startups. Now we have cheese companies. We have all kinds of stuff. We found pretty early on that these rules, they apply to every discipline. And big companies like the Hilton Hotel Group was never going to come up with Airbnb, and the taxi cab industry was never going to do Uber. And so that sort of thinking and that sort of approach to things works across the board for everything. We've been surprised how many problems you can solve by throwing entrepreneurship at them.
Can you come in with your own idea, or do you develop it there?
Some people do. A lot of people are just curious and they want to learn it. We try to fit it in a band of, if you're seasoned and you already know this is your path and you just need to meet other people like you, we try to make it comfortable for those people, as well as there's a ton of folks who are really curious about entrepreneurship and they're nervous. They've got, as an early entrepreneur, you always have imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not Steve Jobs, I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. Do I deserve to be here? And our answer to that question is it is worthless to think about it. A better way to approach that is to come to a 3-day startup or something like a startup weekend and just do it. And you'll figure out pretty quickly how you feel about it. And again, while we have panelists giving feedback and guidance, we don't pick winners, right? We know that people's ability to pick winners really sucks also. And so we found that it worked better to create collaborative kind of stuff. And a lot of the ideas that people work on at a 3DS will flame out weeks later, but they'll try something else. And eventually one of those things will pop.
Okay. I've worked for a few startups as a consultant, and they've probably been the worst startups I've ever heard of in my life. I mean, one's now being sued by Russia and being looked at under federal law, tax evasion, all that stuff. So how can you get into a startup and feel confident that you're not gonna get screwed? Because that keeps happening. Maybe it's me and maybe I'm stupid and I have no idea, but that's a huge fear for me.
You go ahead.
Okay,
you go and then I'll go.
So
I deal with this all the time.
Yeah, I have pretty aggressive ideas about a lot of this stuff. It's usually you want to get to know people as well as you can. At 3-day startup, we make you do a lot of work before you even get the job. We give you something called an audition, which if you want to work for us, which by the way, we hired, our most recent hire was from the Capital Factory Job Fair. So we make them do a lot of work that, one, lets us know their dedication level before we've even paid them, but two, it gives them a sense of what it's like to be with us. And so as someone looking for a job, I would be asking as much as you can. I would be talking to other people who've worked for them, like do your homework. And in the same way that if you want to learn about a product, never trust what the company says, right? They're biased. So I would learn what other people are saying about them.
I always seem to do research, and they'll have their own backers or their own advisors, and those people will vouch for it, and then it just is a giant dumpster fire. Yeah. When you get into it from the consultant and not where you're as an advisor for them. So that's always been really interesting.
Yeah, I don't think for a startup it's fundamentally different than for any other big company you'd go to either. But then you got to try to leverage your network. Meet people. Can you get any reference? Anybody that knows those people or anything like that? And in proxy of that, you look for other signs of things. So typically with the startup, a lot of times the signs of credibility you look for become their investors. It's like, hey, wow, they've got investors who seem very credible, and it's somebody I recognize or somebody that invests in lots of other really credible companies. So you're kind of assuming that the investor did their due diligence, that they vetted these people and they're legit.
Right.
But it's hard.
I will say one thing that's different from normal businesses is that normal businesses have run rate, they have activity, so you can go talk to customers, you can go look online. So there is a little bit difference. What I have my students do, and I have a lot of students that, because I teach entrepreneurship, they get jobs in startups. And I have them treat it like they're an investor. They ask for the plan, they ask to review the business plan or the pitch, and have them pitch to the person what it is about the business, in addition to talking to other people. And I actually have had students come back and say, well, they wouldn't do it, they wouldn't share it with me, or they wouldn't explain to me the business. And I said, well, run away, because this is an investment in your time and your career, and if they're not willing to do that, then you're taking on all that burden of risk. So I would say that's the thing, is have them pitch to you, make them earn the business.
And for the most part, I've learned that lesson is have them pitch to you, do your due diligence, look up their investors, their advisors, so on and so forth. But at the same time, they still, a lot of them that I've come into contact with still have the whole mentality of, okay, here's the business plan, but we're not actually gonna abide by that when we start doing things, and so then it's like cut and run.
Yeah. Well, I'll also say, you know, the failure rates of startups are
high.
hugely high, but I think one of the things that's cool about Austin's ecosystem, this is where we go back to the amount of venture available and all that, is people here try to get to, you know, to revenue and to productive fairly quickly. You don't have a lot of, you know, like Silicon Valley, the TV show kind of goofy ideas. I think that's a good thing. So, you know, that would be the best thing. And I think where Josh said about looking at the investors and the quality of people around them.
And here in Austin, part of that's part of the value of Techstars or Capital Factory, right? It's like, hey, well, if it's one of the 10 Techstars companies, you know, Amos met with all 10 of them, and he thinks they're good, and they've kind of put their brand on it, right? And if you come here, here's a little more crazy. Like, I don't know that just because they're working here that means because there's a lot of people here, but you can, there's a lot of people to ask. You know, it's like there's a lot of people to ask around and like, hey, do you know that person? Do you know that person? You know. So.
And there's some interesting nuances there too, right? Like the one that's getting sued by Russia, that's probably just a bad player, probably. But you know, shifting from their plan because it's not working could potentially also be a sign that they're good entrepreneurs, right? They've recognized that something's fucked up and that they need to fix it, and that doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means that like, hey, we are not on the right path and we still want to build a business. So, you know, just so as part of the interview process, figuring out if you're going to work well with these people and then immersing yourself into the startup culture, because one of the things that really helps a startup win is a team that's actually cohesive and can work together and figure out, okay, we're on the wrong path, like how do we shift together as a unit and figure out what the right path is.
Yeah.
Well, and I will, one last thing about the plan and staying on or off the plan. This is where he and I always have this interesting discussion because he's a lean startup guy. I teach lean startup, but I really am a big traditional business planning. And this is where I agree with him in saying, if they're following the plan exactly, they're probably not great entrepreneurs because it rarely is that the plan you developed is exactly what you should be executing. It's the starting point. And so I would say if you see an entrepreneur that's actually following exactly that plan, they're probably not a very good entrepreneur.
Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to reiterate that point, because we could kill this point all day, is one of the things that we do in the first 2 weeks of Techstars is we do everything we can to blow up whatever the companies are.
Yeah.
Like that's our goal. And if it doesn't blow up, cool, we're on the right path, and if not, let's fix it quickly.
Yeah.
So, I'm the CEO of a little boutique marketing agency here in Austin. I've been here for about 4 years, and on my like 8th South by. Jacqueline's a good friend. You know, I'm in the scene, but one thing I've noticed is that marketing and tech don't necessarily talk to each other very much in this town. And maybe I'm wrong, and you can disagree with me. But one thing we've been looking at as we look at our agency is, I would love there to be a way I can sort of work with early stage startups from a marketing perspective without them committing to giant budgets or being, you know, kind of in an ongoing contract. And I've had, you know, there's been some mentorship type roles and some crossover there. But is there, you know, what's a good stage / venue for that sort of crossover to happen? Yeah.
You mean where to find customers?
No, I mean like a traditional model that we do for a mature company doesn't work with an early stage startup, right? They're gonna come in and out. So the models I've liked have been like mentorship advising roles where they'll someone will pull together a group of early stage startups and then a bunch of people from different roles, marketing, whatever, and they'll advise, mentor, you know, at low cost, or since they're working with multiple different companies, they can sort of spread that cost out more. But I don't see a lot of like natural ways for marketers and tech to sort of integrate in Austin.
So there's a great meetup called the Awesome Meetup.
Yeah.
Which is primarily focused on online marketing, like Awesome, AUSOM.
Yeah.
And so that David Vogelpohl runs. So he's one of the people I look to that I think is kind of plugged into that scene and trying to help do that. There's some stuff around kind of like sales hacking, growth hacking, analytics. You know, there'll be people kind of like getting engaged around that. As far as like what I think you're getting at, I mean, there's a bright line between are you getting paid or not. And when you described it, it was kind of fuzzy. Like, I mean, it's like if you're getting paid at all, it's a completely different thing than if you're not getting paid. So if you're talking about getting paid, then startups don't have money.
Right.
And they're bad customers. You don't want them.
Terrible.
And
Floor them off.
yeah, so I mean, honestly, just like they just really aren't. If anybody building a consultant that wants to sell to startups, I'm just like, you don't want to sell to startups. Go find a better customer. But if it's, hey, I'm looking for ways to just to help out, or basically do some pro bono work that that maybe will someday lead into something else. The way I see that work really well for people is finding ways to do limited engagements for startups that they don't expect to make any money off of. But, like, for example, when people do it here, it's basically a way to show off to the mentors, honestly. It's like, it gives you like a case study. And then, like, because if you come here and you kick ass for like one of the startups here, all the mentors are all running much bigger companies who could hire people, right? And like when they see like, oh, that person just did that awesome thing, like people find out about it. Like that like gets around, right? So that's kind of how I would approach it or think about it. It would be like, you know what, like, startups are bad customers. I'm never going to get enough money from them to be worth it, but maybe I can find something cool that I like or someone that I like, and I can help them for free, but in doing so, like, I'll get something from it later too.
So my grad degree is in marketing. My 30 years of tech was running product and traditional and digital marketing. He said, he gets confused. He said he gets confused because I also teach digital marketing at the university. I think there's a confusing part here in Austin because we are such a technology-based area that they view SEM, SEO, and content marketing as marketing. They don't understand brand, positioning, segmentation, pricing, any of that. And matter of fact, they don't think they need it.
Right.
And so
Pricing,
I think pricing maybe. Well, actually, it's still pricing.
There's a whole pricing unit in Trilogy, right?
But I think there's opportunity to educate on that part. And I laugh because I'll say, you actually need to do press releases and do these. Well, press releases don't matter anymore. I'm focused on content marketing. And I'm like, well, what do you think press releases can feed? You don't have to actually get in the press. But they don't understand how all that ties to brand messaging. And I would say educating is probably a great opportunity. I'm still where you are, totally on the dollars. But understand when you hear this, you can actually run the test to figure out. They're like, oh yeah, I already know how to do SEM. I'm really great at Google Analytics. I use Marketo. I'm a marketing person.
And I'll just add, like, in sort of in that same vein, like, I would ask you, like, ultimately, what do you want the outcome for yourself to be, right? If the outcome is truly altruistic, I think your answers will become a lot more clear than if your outcome is, well, I want customers, even if they're not customers for 3 or 4 years. But doing things like, during Startup Week, like, give a couple of talks, right? There's tons of people that'll come and listen to you.
I guess my question is neither serving the startup community in altruistic position nor finding customers. It's more just I want to be in venues where those two groups the marketing and tech groups are cross-pollinating. And in my experience, I go to one event or I go to the other event. It's not across, and I learn something every time I get, I'm here. I'm not necessarily.
There used to be an Austin internet marketing group.
There was.
That
Yeah, well, there still is.
somebody ran. Like
They're still around.
They do a breakfast. There's a few of them. But, well, I will tell you.
But it wasn't ever that big of a thing.
One of the things, Josh Dilworth Jones, I don't know if you know the JDI. Josh actually got going. He was at Fleischman Hilliard, I think he was. Entrepreneurship. He was my guy for a while. And when he left there and started his firm, he was yours too? He's awesome. He actually started doing speaking events, educating people about, and actually content at the time, because content was brand new. And I would say, finding ways to go to some of these things and offer to just teach and talk is probably the way to get it.
He gives an awesome talk on owned, earned, and paid media.
Yeah. I haven't come and speak to my classes still. He's great at
that class. That's a great talk.
Yeah.
He does it at my UT class too.
Yeah.
He does it for Techstars too.
Yeah.
Apparently he's good at reusing it.
Students love it. He uses a lot of profanity in his talks. They love him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you guys are all idiots. No, he doesn't say it's you're all fucking idiots.
I have a question. The function of people operations, right? Buzzword for HR. So that's my background, and I've worked in a few startups. I actually moved out here from Florida to kind of hopefully plant myself in an ecosystem where I might have some opportunities. Curious now, not on the founding team per se, but When are you guys advising, or when do you see sort of advising for like somebody to strategically oversee that? I'm talking about like a PEO doing your, maybe it encompasses like, the basic tactical or administrative functions, but more of that strategic, like to Amos's point about that cohesiveness, the startup founding team kind of sets the culture, if you will, right?
About 15 people.
Right, okay, so about 15 people, cool.
Like when hiring stops being a completely one-off thing. Like when it's not like, I need one of those people, and I'm never gonna, like it's a unique thing, and it starts to be like, oh, I realize like, shit, we actually are gonna have to regularly hire people and grow. And I'm not saying they shouldn't look at it earlier, but they're not gonna.
But it's just hiring becomes a problem that needs a dedicated solution, okay.
And just like, I got a million problems. Like, so I gotta pick certain ones to focus on. And that's an important one, but I don't think you're gonna find founders engaging highly on it.
15 people or the first call from the Workforce Commission. Either of those two.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Making that transition from large, maybe medium size company to the smaller startup, what are some of the attributes and people that you've seen that make that a successful transition? Question for the whole panel, really.
I want a mix of both. Go ahead, you.
Yeah. Probably the one thing I've seen most often is when the person that's making the transition, their role has been really to help launch products or organizations within a bigger organization, because then they have the mindset of like, okay, I don't have a lot to work with and people aren't going to listen to me and I've got to make them listen. I do think it's a really, really hard transition though. I usually try to scare the shit out of people if they're trying to make that transition. Because it just is, it's a lot different when you have zero resources and you're not, like no one's making your sales deck for you and no one's doing your budget for you and you're doing it all yourselves, and if you screw up it's all on you, then you have a safety net.
Yeah, usually you're building stuff or you're selling stuff. At the very earliest stage, you need to be doing one of those two things. You need to be comfortable doing it with no resources, no playbook, no process figuring out. And people who have a natural just gravitation towards just creating value, we've tried to define this and categorize it. It's been really tough to find a taxonomy for, but there's some people who just, whatever they're around, they create value. And they don't even know how they're doing it sometimes. But those people are insanely valuable because it's just not role-based work, it's outcome-based work.
Yeah, I would emphasize Amos's point that if I'm investing in something, and so they're coming from that kind of background, what I'm looking at is going like, exactly to the point of like, they're like, get used to not having resources, like, is this person gonna be able to like, do like, not have infrastructure around them, not have anyone to support them, not have, really have to go do everything themselves, and that's a lot of stuff, and you have to have a certain attitude and a perspective to go do that. And so some people, it's obvious, like you see them and they're just like ready to go eat the world, and they're just like, they're like, I'm not worried about that at all, like they're just, they're going, but 80% of the time I'm really worried about it.
So there's an interesting corollary, because I've been in both. I've been in big companies. I started my own, and I've watched a bunch of people go through.
And you were Dell for a long time too, right?
Dell, yeah, and I was in Motorola, in Compaq, so I was in those kind of firms, and then to my own. The corollary is, in academia, you're rewarded for rigor and process, not for the outcome. If you get a paper, but you didn't use the right process, doesn't matter how brilliant the theory or the idea is, it's not ever accepted. Where in practice, we're rewarded for outcome, right? We don't care if you did all the T's. Matter of fact, companies that are known to be too rigorous and too orderly and process driven don't compete very well. Same thing mentally. The shift that I find that people have to make is when you're in a big corporation, you are so focused on process and steps and rigor and organization that you tend to forget the outcome. And you'll find that that entrepreneurs are totally outcome based. If I have to work 24 hours, 20 hours, or I have to work Saturdays, or I have to go figure out how to trade, mowing somebody's lawn to get them to write, an ad for me, you'll do that. Where if you've got that corporate mindset, it's like, no, that's not what I do. I'll go pay somebody, or I'll go find somebody. So if you can make that shift of, it's outcome is what matters, and I don't care how I get there, the process and the rigor doesn't matter. It can be ugly the first time, next time we'll make it a little bit better. That's the hardest shift I found people to make, both internally of how do I accept something I wouldn't give my boss? Well, you're the boss now and you gotta get the outcome. And then externally, people going, this looks like it's beneath me. You know, that if you can get rid of those two things and focus on outcome, you will do well. If you can't, you know, this is, I think, probably what you have to test, you know, beat the crap out of people about.
Yeah, and I've been through it in reverse. I've been acquired into 3 companies, big companies, and I'll never forget the moment that I got acquired into Yahoo, and I sat there and I said, holy shit, I don't fucking matter anymore. Like, I'm working my ass off, and it wouldn't matter if I literally cut my effort down to 25%, so I tested it, and it didn't fucking matter. I actually got promoted. I'm out here.
Because your 25% was probably more than a lot of people that had their own.
Did you have one?
Yeah.
Sorry, just that was me.
My question is really accelerator versus incubator versus just the capital factory ecosystem. I'm a co-founder in a startup. The founder is doing it full time. We've got a working prototype. We're just trying to finish up the user interface so we can start doing some beta testing, but for pre-revenue. We haven't launched it to the marketplace yet. So I'm pretty familiar with Techstars and your 3-month program, but and I also went through new venture creation, so I kind of understand the UT side of things and what is available through TVL. But I'm not familiar with Capital Factory and some of the other incubators. Kind of where do we fit?
Well, so our model, honestly, it's a little bit. I'm going to do my best to answer you, but we're about to announce some new programming for next year. So our model is going to shift pretty significantly, and we're going to fundamentally be doing something different. But the mechanics of it are about to shift. So, I'll be a little bit of a loose answer, but I would say, as far as accelerators go, most accelerators copy the Techstars model. Like that's the foundation of the accelerator model. It's a 3-month program with mentoring and a demo day at the end. And the goal for most of them, well, I'd say in particular Techstars being the biggest example of being much more than just this, is help you raise money. Like that's, and maybe a simpler way of saying it, because like for example, I know you get so much more from Techstars or from Capital Factor or other things than just raising money. But I think still, for most people, the motivation going into it is like, I need to raise money. Like, you're gonna help me raise money, you know? Like, maybe if they're smart, they figure out by the end of it, they get a lot more than that from it. But very few people go into it and think, like, I don't need any money at all, I just want mentorship. They usually are looking for the money. So that's usually why people join an accelerator, is like, they think, and to make it really simple, it's like, well, I don't think I can go raise this money by myself. I'm not ready, I don't know how, I don't know the right people. Those are all things an accelerator can fix, can like do. Like, we're gonna tell you if you're ready and get you ready. We're gonna show you how to do it and make you look good and like, you know, do the right thing, and we're gonna introduce you to the right people. So that's what it's really helpful for. Capital Factory operates that type of a program. We have a process for helping to introduce you to investors and helping get ready for that. And we also play really nicely with Techstars or Y Combinator or other programs too. Separate from that, we have, you know, being a member here and being part of the community. And our goal with that is, you know, and you can decide how successful we are, but our goal is like, yeah, everybody should want to do that. That if you're a startup and you're successful, you're going to have to hire people. You need to get exposure and attention for what you do. You need space at some different point. Even if you don't need to work here, there are reasons why you might need the space that's here. And you want access to the deal flow. Just like what we've done is create a really good magnet. And it sucks in. If you're a startup, it sucks in everybody you need to meet. Every fucking person you are ever gonna need to meet. Like, it's gonna be a complete fluke of nature if they come to Austin and they do not walk through these doors. And that's what we're trying to do. And so that's it. It's like, if you're a startup, like, you need to know if that person comes to town, and you need to get that intro. And if you're not going to hire somebody, like, you need to know all the options for that, and they need to know about you. And what we're trying, and I need to know you, because I'm going to be talking to everybody, and so you need to be top of mind, and I need to know what's going on, and I need to meet with you every once in a while and know what's going on, so that when I go meet with the Secretary of Defense who comes in, or like some other person, like, I'm like, yeah, you need to meet this company, right? And it's not just me, it's obviously a bunch of other people here, but that's our model, and that's what it means to be part of our community and part of it. And our goal and what we do, our model is basically to get just investment rights. We want the ability to invest. So we're kind of like help everybody, and then the ones that work, we want to go invest in.
I would also say, I think one of the things people don't understand about us or about Capital Factory is it is so relationship driven. And there are so many opportunities to meet people here and do things. There's meetups here all the time. there's High Tech Happy Hour, there's Bash, which is the big ass social happy hour, which is tech people. In this town, it doesn't happen, like the marketing things or things like that don't happen just because you applied and got there. They usually happen because you see people 2 or 3 places or 4 places. We're doing a meetup with Houston Tillotson, the historically African or historically black college here in town, and we decided we picked the 18th to meet. And it turns out that there is a sales meetup here at Capital Factory, so we're trying to move it over here so we can have it and be here where all the cool kids are for the cool kids in our schools. And I think that's how you actually build those connections in town, is making use of those meetups. It isn't like you have to look for things, it's you gotta pick which ones because there's so many ones to go to. That would be my take.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I think the sign says it great, right? Like, that's something that's super unique to Austin. I don't know any other city, I don't know any city in the world that has that, right? Like, Capital Factory is the center of gravity.
Yeah. I mean, we met a few times around town, and they're like, I went to breakfast for a meeting 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And there was this family, hey, how you doing? We talked for a couple of minutes, meeting with I'm meeting with another VC in town, and that's kind of what happens in this town. That's how you build those relationships, and you get that opportunity.
Incubator is kind of a dead term.
Okay.
I mean, it's just like I guess ATI still calls himself an incubator, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's generally been accepted that like incubators just got a stigma as being like the old or the 80s way of doing things, and so everybody wanted to be called something else. I mean, I actually think it's a pretty good description of like this place is an incubator. Like, I don't know what else, if you had to put like one name on it, like that's probably the best name to put on it.
Hey, I'm sure the answer is yes, but I'm curious. Like, so there's so many companies in here. Have there been companies that have totally like broken up, come together, form something else that is actually like incubated out of here in that way? Like, so you've got like 3 different companies that are working on something, 1 or 2 of them fail, you got a founder that comes together, all of a sudden you've got a 4th formation.
Oh, I mean, all the time, but like one example of that was one of my favorites was like a complete Capital Factory love child, where like there were three mentors that all came from different things, and then it met here, got together, and then created Written.
That's awesome.
And yeah, lots of examples of that, and companies merging, and co-founders meeting. Zing Checkout was 2 startups that merged here at Capital Factory that Zach was doing a different startup. And One Greek was just acquired by Group Threads.
Yeah.
That's another one. So like that was just like that was a little merger that just happened. Erica Douglas got acquired by Own Local.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like that was a. So yeah, I mean, it's actually happening a lot. It's happening all the time. Yeah. And I mean, I say. I sometimes just say this just because it's slightly provocative, but it's like I call it cannibalism. I'm like, people say, they're like, well, do people sign NDAs? I'm like, no. The good companies eat the other companies, like, and that's good. Like, like that's what happens. Like, if your company's not going to work, it's better off if you go get working on one that is.
Yeah,
like,
it's less like eating and destroying. It's more
like
it's like the blob, right? It gets bigger and bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not. There's no pain involved. Like, well, there's usually not pain involved. But,
No, resume says successful exit.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's a resume?
Yeah, right. Time for one more question.
I'm just curious as a whole. I've heard that there's been, in a general trend, more of a push towards startups that like incorporate hardware in some way, or like the Internet of Things. I was just wondering if you all could talk about like a local perspective of that, of companies that are doing that. What's your take on that? It sounds like your previous company with the tablets was in that field. And yeah, that's just something that I'm curious about.
My experience is it does this. This was a town that was, B2B first, and then B2C, and then now it's hardware, and now hardware's out. Now we're back to B2B. My experience now it's IoT. Things go through waves. I don't think it's like one or the other. When we did Motion, we had a hard time getting funded here in the U.S., not in Austin, in the U.S., because we were hardware. It was right after the .com bombing, and they were, we're out of tech, but hardware's way down the tech list, and we ended up getting our A round from Taiwan, and then our B round was NEA and IVP in San Francisco, but we were shipping and profitable by then. Then, and now hardware got popular again, not because of us, because the market took off again, and things picked up. So my experience is it goes through waves. Medical's becoming bigger here now because of all else doing that, but that's
I think
my
there are
take.
definitely waves. I have a little bit of a different perspective on hardware in Austin right now in particular. I think that, I do think separate from the cycles, there have been some fundamental shifts in hardware over the past 10 years that we're seeing the effects of right now, and that Austin was in a very good position to take advantage of because of our history in a lot of hardware and stuff. So we had a bunch of people that knew chips and hardware design and like get products and manufacturing, and all these Dell people that know how to go get shit built in China, right? Like that kind of stuff, which was a great foundation. And then over the past 10 years, hardware became software. Like it got way more modular, it got way more standardized, it got way 3D printing, platforms, Arduinos, like all these things, it got way easier, and I don't need to go to a fab first or do this other stuff to prototype something and build something and like get, and even getting it produced in China got way easier, right? It's just like way easier to like go spec something and get it built in China. Like that is just all a million times easier than it was 10 years ago, and more open and platform. And then all the devices are all connected. So one, I think that really helped. Two, IoT is a major trend. I mean, we have, in particular, we see a lot of startups. I see more investors who want startups and can't find them. Like there's a lot of investors who want to invest in IoT and they're circling around. And then wearables, getting into medical devices, things like that. So I'd say, mobile wearables and IoT, those have been the two industries that are I see really pushing it right now. And there's a lot of interest and a lot of investor stuff behind, and Austin's just very well positioned to go do because of our foundation.
But 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we had IBM had their RISC and their PC division and their OS division here. Dell had our development here, which a lot of it moved
Metroworks.
in 2000 with Metroworks here.
Not hardware.
Motorola still had stuff. Motorola was prototyping things. ARM had a development division here, and over time those have all kind of moved away. A lot of that Dell design is really done now in their factories, or their design areas overseas. So I think that's actually played a little bit of a role, but I'm where you are. I think those are the three hot areas.
Yeah.
So and answering it to more globally than locally, across the Techstars network, we probably see between hardware and IoT, 30 to 40% of the companies we invest in. And then we also have a program that's all IoT, and we had a program that was all robotics, which is mostly hardware. And
30%. Wow.
Between the two, yeah.
But I will still have one thing on this, and I think this is kind of what drives some of the stuff that you're talking about. At the end of the day, we pitched, and I don't think it's changed much in talking to friends who are on the VC side. Margin drives a lot of investment. A lot of these venture capital guys, they're finance guys. They're not, they're not tech guys. They don't care. They may care a little bit, but and hardware traditionally, the more consumer facing you go, the lower the margins are because of commoditization and competition. And so if you're going to do hardware, you got to be in things where you can get higher margin. The reason why IoT is so popular is there's so much software you wrap around it that you can actually drive, and services you can drive it. So if you are going to do hardware, you really need to think about the overall margin. That was one of the challenges of my company over time, is when the iPad came out, it drove margins from the 40s and 50s on the core platform down to the high teens and 20s, which totally changed the business quite a bit. We had to do a lot of peripherals, and we had to add a lot more software. It changed the dynamics a lot. It was not as interesting as it was when it was a much bigger software and service play. So I would say if you are going to go do that, make sure you're looking at hardware in a place where there is ability to drive higher margins.
Great. Awesome. Well, we're going to wrap it there. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you to our panelists. Let's give a round of applause. Real quickly, I want to introduce just a couple people in the room that you may want to meet as you go out. So JD is our venture associate. So if any of you have questions about the accelerator program, meeting investors, anything like that, JD would be a great person. Areej behind him works with him on that team. She'd also be a great person. Sarah is our mentor coordinator. So she knows all the mentors and people like that. And so if there's somebody you're interested in or been trying to talk to, I can't promise she'll give you their email address or anything, but she can tell you about them and talk about them. And then I'm going to go to the kitchen from here. If any of you guys want to join there, I'm happy to join and talk there too. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Hey Josh, how can we get on the
What?
3-day startup?
You were on the other side.
Are we on one?
Yeah, you were on. But yeah, all examples of how to get a co-founder. That was all 3-day startup. That's all I said. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, you were up earlier when I saw it.
You're at our DIC, by the way, as well. We just pitched the curriculum committee
Yeah.
on that model for where we want to go for partnerships.
Ben,
Well,
that's,
I need to tell you how ready I am. Hazel. And you need to. We're working on it.
you come from a similar background.
Hope that was helpful today.
Yeah, I've just been trying to get out more and things that are not mine. Kind of pick up events and things like that. It's kind of new things.
Yeah.
Howdy, how's it going? JD,
Cool. Very curious, but would like to connect. Tell me, no, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Just some sort of resource.
Yeah, I mean, one of these sources, work out of here. I don't know exactly the logistics, but like inside of the sheets types that using I don't have any in Silicon Valley, but it's every month.
I'm not, but I've done a lot of research.
Yeah.